So what if I told you that the way you think, the actual language inside your head, might be completely, totally different from the person sitting right next to you? Today, we're diving into the incredible work of Dr. Temple Grandin, and she revealed something amazing, that some people don't think in words at all. They literally think in pictures. All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with how this different way of thinking was even discovered. Then we'll get into what it actually looks like to think in pictures. And from there, we'll jump into a really powerful, practical way to use this knowledge. And we'll wrap up by talking about why all of this, why these different minds, matters so, so much. This quote from Dr. Grandin says it all, doesn't it? For pretty much her whole life, she just assumed that her internal world, this constant stream of vivid, photorealistic images, was how everybody's brain worked. Can you imagine the shock of finding out that most people actually navigate the world using language inside their heads? It's a huge revelation, and it's where we're going to start. You think about it, in our entire culture, our schools, our books, our media, it's all built for and by verbal thinkers. It's just the default setting we all assume is universal. So for Dr. Grandin, that moment of realizing her mind was basically playing a movie while most others were reading a script, well, that was a game changer. Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. What does it actually mean to think in pictures? This isn't just about having a good imagination. Not at all. It's like your brain is running a completely different operating system to process the world around you. This church steeple test that Dr. Grandin came up with is the perfect way to understand this. If you ask a verbal thinker to picture a church steeple, they'll probably get a vague, kind of generic concept. Maybe just a simple icon, like a triangle on a box. But a picture thinker? Oh, it's a whole different story. Their brain is like its own private Google Images, instantly pulling up a slideshow of specific, detailed, photorealistic steeples they've actually seen before, one after another. Boom, boom, boom. And that leads to what she calls bottom-up thinking. See, instead of starting with a general idea, like the word dog, a picture thinker builds that concept piece by piece, using specific examples they've seen. So at first, they might sort cats and dogs just by size. But then, whoops, they see a tiny dachshund, and that rule doesn't work anymore. So their brain adds new details, the shape of the nose, the sound of the bark, to make the category more and more accurate. The big idea is built from all the little details.
But wait, it gets even more interesting. It turns out visual thinking isn't just one thing. Research has actually found that there are two totally distinct types of visual minds, and each one has its own amazing superpowers.
So, first up, you've got the object visualizer. This is Dr. Grandin. These are the folks who think in those photorealistic pictures we've been talking about. They are absolute wizards with mechanics, art, and design. They can build an entire machine piece by piece in their head and then run it, test it, see every single gear turn, all before a single screw has been touched in the real world. And then you have the spatial visualizer. Now, their mind works differently. They think in patterns, in abstractions. These are the geniuses you find in fields like higher math, music, and coding. They might not see the photorealistic engine, but what they do see are the beautiful, complex patterns and systems that make that engine work in the first place. And this table just lays it out so clearly. You can see how these minds are meant to work together, right? The object visualizer designs the physical thing. The spatial visualizer figures out the complex patterns to make it run. And the verbal thinker, they write the instructions and explain to everyone why it matters. They each have different strengths, different challenges, and we absolutely need all of them.
So this is where it all comes together. How do we take these incredible ideas and actually use them? Let's walk through a really powerful example. Building a visual communication tool specifically for someone like a nonverbal child who might just be an object visualizer, based on everything we've just learned.
Okay, first up, concrete objects. You wouldn't use a cartoon or generic icon of a dog. No way. An object visualizer's brain is a library of specifics. So you use a super clear, high-contrast photo of one specific dog. Maybe it's the family pet. This connects directly to how their brain builds ideas, from the bottom up, with real-world examples.
So what about an action, a verb? Same principle. You've got to avoid abstraction. A stick figure running is way too conceptual. Instead, you use a clear, literal photograph of a person in the middle of the act of running. This makes the concept of run totally concrete, grounding it in a real visual memory.
Dr. Grandin talks a lot about how visual thinkers often have this heightened sensory awareness. They really notice details,
textures, patterns, the way light hits something that the rest of us might just filter out. So a card for sparkly would focus right in on that sensory detail, creating a direct link between a word and an actual visual feeling. And finally, this is where it becomes a real bridge for communication. To offer a choice, you present two distinct photorealistic options, side by side: an apple, a banana. This isn't abstract anymore. It's a clear visual question. And for a nonverbal child, this simple tool can be incredibly empowering, giving them a real voice to express what they want. But here's the thing. A tool like this isn't just for teaching. It's also for listening. It's a way to test the theory, to observe, and to really understand. Watching how someone responds to these very specific visual cues, that's how you find out if you're speaking their language.
And these are the signs you're looking for. It's all about observation. Do their eyes track the image? Do they point, even for a second, at one of the choices? Do they reach out for it? Maybe they even make a sound in response. These are not small things. These behaviors are the data, the feedback, telling you, yes, I see this, I understand.
And this really brings us back to the big picture, Understanding these different ways of thinking isn't just a cool fact. It's absolutely fundamental to how we build our world, how we solve our biggest problems, and how we teach our kids. The core message from Dr. Grandin is this: true innovation, the big stuff, it only happens when these different kinds of minds come together. You need the object visualizers to invent the physical solutions. You need the spatial visualizers to figure out the underlying systems. And you need the verbal thinkers to organize it all and share the vision. Our greatest accomplishments, past and future, depend on this kind of teamwork. And that really leaves us with one last massive question to think about. In a world that is facing so many complex challenges, just imagine the potential. Imagine what we could unlock if we truly learned how to value and build bridges between all the different, incredible kinds of minds out there. The possibilities are, well, they're pretty extraordinary.